Hi everybody, and welcome to the block 3 and 4 of the Sweet Land of Liberty pillow. We did the first two blocks in the live class. I didn't pick them in order because I wanted to do certain ones in the live class. So we did the flag block and the little cherries block in the live class, and then this is going to be the Sweet Land of Liberty block and also the cake block. So those are the two that we're going to do in this video. Just so that you have a video for each one of them. I already went through, I did another video about how you could alter, the 3 of the 4 blocks for this week were also fairly large, so they need to be done in an 8x12 hoop if you're going to do them quilt as you go. But I showed you a way to alter, if you only have a 6x10 hoop, you can alter your designs in some software, and then you can get them all done in a 6x10 hoop. So, but I am going to use the larger hoops in this video because that's what I plan to do. But I'll talk about the 6x10 hoop as we're going. Okay. So the first block that we're going to do is the Sweet Land of Liberty block. And page 4 in the instructions gives us all the information that we need so we know which quilting designs they used in what place. And you don't have to use the ones they recommend, but it is nice to know which ones they use. There was a nice little bundle available for this pillow. So there's like 2 quilting designs and then like a border design. So there was like 3, and it was a really nice little bundle, and you can get I think you can still get a little deal on it if you buy the bundle. Okay, so for the Sweet Land of Liberty block, that's what we're going to do first. That one says that we need to use wavy 4, and it's the 6x6 vertical quilting. So we need to bring that up in the machine first. So let's just get our design going here first. So we'll bring this up. Okay, so I'm going to go to embroidery. I'm going to go to my stick and go to my quilting first. So I'm going to bring in my quilting. I got to get my Kimberbell quilting, and it said wavy 4 way down here at the bottom probably. I have a lot of designs, can you tell? I think almost all of these. Wavy 4, and then it says it's 6x6 vertical. So we're going to be using the block by block designs, and these are only block by block. These particular designs, there's no clear blue tile files for these. So we're going to use the 6x6, got to find it, wavy vertical. So it's the second one, the ones with the lines going up and down. So I'm going to use that one. And I'm going to bring that one in and set it in my machine. Okay. So this is the one that we fixed in the video for the 6x10. Because remember, because this is too big for the 6x10. So for those of you with the 6x10s, make sure you watch that video so you know how to fix this, so you can do this one in the hoop. Okay. And then the next one we're going to bring in then is the design. Give me a second here. I got to find the page in the book with that. Okay, and I'm going to add down here, you probably couldn't see it, sorry, it's down at the bottom. I'm going to add and go back to my stick again, and I'm going to bring in my Sweet Land of Liberty, got to find that, Sweet Land of Liberty, and we're going to bring in the Sweet Land block. So here it is, 5x7 Sweet Land, so it's this one. Okay, I'm going to set that. So what it says in the instructions then, on each block it'll give you some instructions, and on this one, let's turn this just a little bit so you can see all my scribbling, that it's the wavy 4 6x6 vertical design, and then line the block embroidery file with the quilting design so that both are centered. So this is when you bring it into your machine, it automatically comes in centered. So this one should be all ready to go now, all centered, and I do have this in my 8x8 hoop so I didn't have to alter the design. Okay, so I did this in the 8x8 because it says that my design is 6.5 by 6.5. Okay, so I have my 8x8 hoop in my machine, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this camera down here. I have my 8x8 hoop in my machine, and then and I'm sure I told this to you in the in the live class, but I don't like to cut my batting. I'm very lazy. I don't like to have cut batting. So I have all these little scraps of batting, and I have to whack it off in the hoop anyway, so I don't take all that time to cut my batting. In the quilting instructions, it tells you to cut your batting to certain sizes, and I never take time to do that. It's just too much work. So I am going to use my batting, okay, my batting chunk here. And I'm going to grab my little packet of, and I talked about the organization in the live class too. So I have my little packet here that has all my fabrics for Sweet Land. Okay, so I'm going to pull these out and get these ready. I've got all my little pieces in here for this block. All right, so I got these all ready. May have to go, and I also have on the back of my main fabric here, I am going to be putting some shape flex. So I'm going to put shape flex on the back here. I haven't done it yet. So I'm going to pause the video for a second and go do that. But I'm going to put the shape flex on the back of my fabric because I thought I already had it on there, but I must not have cut it. So I'm going to do that. And actually I think I'll just pause the video right now and go do that real quickly, and then we'll come back and we'll get the block started. Okay, so I have my shape flex on the back of my fabric, and I have a bunch of little scraps, so I'm using up some of my scraps. So you can see there's a little line there, so but it still works fine to do that. I often do that because I like to use up all my scraps of this stuff. And the first step then, we're going to go ahead and start this. So the first step, I got my design all up, I got my quilting up there. So the first step, of course, is going to be in the quilting. So the first thing is going to be the batting placement line. So I'll go ahead and stitch that out. I'm going to get my chunk of batting here. Like I said, I'm really lazy. I don't like to cut. I mean, it's bad enough to have to cut all the fabric, right? So I hardly ever cut the I never cut the batting. I should say I hardly ever. I never cut the batting. I just like to lay a chunk down. You got to trim it anyway, right? So what's the point in cutting it and then having to cut it again? So I just lay it down. I always have pieces of batting left over from my long arm. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to lay this over the placement line. And then step number 2 in the machine is going to be the tack down for the batting. And I've just got white embroidery thread on in my machine right now, and because I want to quilt this with white, so I am just going to use the white for the tacking down too. And then, yeah, so I'm going to quilt it with the white. Trying to read my little scribbled notes here. So we're doing the tack down. It's going to go around it a couple of times. Got kind of a shadow going on here. I think I'll turn the light on behind me here. I apologize. I got some new lights for my sewing room though, and it really helps, but it's going to give me just a little bit of a, evidently a little bit of a shadow. So hopefully that's better. Okay, so let me get my trimming scissors, and we're just going to trim the batting then, close to the stitches. All the way around. And like I said, you can cut your batting. It tells you in the instructions for the quilting designs how big to make all your batting pieces. And if you want to cut them, sure, certainly go cut them. I just always have these scraps, and this is how I do it. It's just so much faster. I really do not enjoy cutting very much. Okay, so there's my trimmed batting. And then the next thing we're going to do, I'll just throw this up there. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to lay our, whoops, I'm sorry. This, yeah, step number 4 is actually going to be the placement line for the fabric. I'm sorry. I always forget that one. That's the one I forget. So step number 3 in the machine is going to be the placement line for the fabric. I often forget that one. I always remember the tack down line because you lay it down and you tack it down, but I often forget that they do put the placement line in here. Okay, so there's my placement line, and I'm going to try to get this as organized, you know, as centered as possible in here. And then step number 4 will be my favorite tack down. I always get that one right, but okay, so then we're going to tack this down. I've still got my white thread. I've got white embroidery thread in the needle, and then I've just got regular bobbin thread in the bobbin. Sorry, the cat decided she didn't want to be hit by the sewing machine. She just meowed. She likes to help me when I make videos. Okay, so it's going to tack down that fabric. So that was step number 4. And I'm just going to leave my white thread in because I want my quilting to be in white. So step number 5 is going to be the actual quilting then on my fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead and stitch out step number 5 and do the quilting. And then we'll be ready just to do the design. This is a really cute quilting design. It's kind of a wavy design, but then it's vertical instead of horizontal. So I thought it was kind of cool. Now remember, if you were doing this in the 6x10 hoop, the last 2 steps would not be in your design because that's the ones that made it too big for the 6x10. So you would just lay your fabric down and maybe tape it around the edges to hold it in. So it's real easy. It was just, you're just going to be omitting those 2 lines. But this would be the same. And then the design would be the same. But I just have my 8x8 hoop. I'm using the 8x8 on this one. And we'll do one other block in this video, and we'll do the cake block. And that one's going to be done in the 8x12. So this is the quilting. It's really cute. You can see it has nice texture. Now I'm using, I use Hobbs 80/20 batting for the most part. I really like it because it's just a little bit loftier than some of the other batting. I like it just to have a little bit more poop to it. You can see the quilting a little bit more. And it works really well, and it's very soft. So when you go to sew these together, it's not hard, and it doesn't feel really, really stiff. I really enjoy doing the quilting in the hoop. It's so fun to watch the blocks, and they sew up so cool. And every quilting design, it's like, isn't it funny though how we still watch our machines? I've had a machine now, an embroidery machine, for 20 years, and I still sit and watch it. I'm just mesmerized by it. And maybe that's silly, but I still enjoy watching my machine. Every design is different, you know. Isn't that pretty? Can you see the pretty quilting? I just really like it. And the quilt blocks on this design, on this pillow, are so fun, and they're all, none of them are very hard. There's quite a little bit of applique in most of them, but they aren't hard, and they're just so cute when they're done. So, and then when we get to the quilting of the borders are so pretty, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So, all right, so it's just about done here with our quilting. So there's our quilting. Isn't that neat? Can you see the texture? That's why I like the Hobbs batting. It just gives a little more texture to it than some of the flatter batting. Okay, now we're into our design. And you'll have to give me a minute here. My cat is sitting on the instruction book. So the next step is going to be step number 1 of the design, which is actually a little, oh, it's the fuse on the firecracker. I did that in gray. It's 817 gray. I'm using the Brother colors, and I will have said this in the live class as well, so I'm using the Brother colors. This is 817 gray. And I'm just going to thread this up, and we'll do the first step of the actual design. So we're going to sew out the little fuse, and then I think step number 2 I did in the same color. Yeah, step number 2 is in the same color, and it's like a little swirl that's in down along the stars over here. Except it looks like I got a little tail, so my machine likes to leave tails for some reason. Okay, so I'm going to leave the light gray, or I'm sorry, the 817 gray. It's gray satin is what they call it. I'm going to leave that in, and I'm going to do the second step of the design in that same gray. Now I have to see, oh, and then the next one is going to be the gold. We're going to do a little applique, so it's going to be the gold leather. So we're going to, here's the embroidery leather we're going to use on this one. So here's my swirl. And then I'm going to switch my color, and I want to use, I'm using number 1300 Golden Basket, which is my gold. So here's my gold. So we'll get this in here. And this is the third step of the design. And this is going to be the placement line for the leather. So we'll do that first, and then we'll lay the leather down. Got my little piece of gold embroidery leather here. I love their embroidery leather. Okay. Then we're going to lay this over, and as you can see, it's plenty large enough. You can tape it if you like. I'm just going to hold it. It's more than amply large enough, so I'm just going to hold it. I'm lazy and I don't like to tape unless I have to. There's times when I have to tape just because of where it is. And then we're going to, we did the tack down in the same color, and now we're going to trim it close to the stitches. And I think this one is covered, so with the stitching, the reason I did my tack down and my placement line in the same color is this, I believe, is a motif stitch around the outside edge. So you might be able to see your tack downs line, so just make sure you're using the same color thread. I like to use the same color thread. I usually do on all my appliques because I've gotten caught a couple times that I didn't realize something was going to be in a motif stitch, and then I did it in a different color and then it showed. So I usually always change my color now. So here's my little star. I'm going to turn my page here in a second. And the next one is going to be the decorative stitch on my star. It's the next step, and this is step number 5 in the machine. And then we're going to do another star. There's another star on the other end, or I think it's a bud. It's on the top of so it's going to do the decorative fill. And this is a motif, so it's better to use your matching threads for your tack downs on this one. So pretty much all the appliques at the beginning. And these blocks don't take too long. Oops, must have broke a thread, so we're going to back up a little bit. I'll rethread my machine. And this is always a good time for me to remind everybody, anytime you break a thread, or, you know, I always go underneath and check my bobbin, because, you know, inevitably, it is never what you think it's going to be. Didn't break my bobbin thread though, did it? Okay. So I'm going to reset my bobbin too, just to make sure. I always do both, because if you don't, it's never the one you thought it was. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that bobbin thread up the bottom. Okay, and then we're going to back up a little bit here. So we'll do the little backup button over here. And probably going to hit it about 3 times. So I like to go back about the 10, so I go back about 30 stitches to make sure I cover it all up really well. Okay, and I got my needle threaded again, should be good. sometimes I notice that I'll have a thread break when I'm using the leather because it's a little stiff, and I suppose the edge is stiff or something. Okay, so there's that little decorative stitch on there, and then the next step is going to be the up at the top here. It's another applique star, and I think this one we're going to use, there's a little piece of gold fabric. So here's the fabric that we're going to use. Okay, and as usual, I have a little tail sticking up, so I like to trim if I have any little, oh, I don't, oh yeah, I do, here it is. Thought I saw a little tail. I always like to make sure I trim those to make sure that I don't get them sewed into something. Then we're going to lay the little piece of fabric down, and this is step number 7, and I'm still using my golden basket. I'm still using that gold 1300. We're going to tack down our fabric. And then we're going to trim it. Okay, I'm going to trim this. Trim this close to the stitches. And again, this one's going to be, I believe it's a motif stitch, if I remember correctly. And so I like to use that matching thread for my tack downs. A second, I gotta pull this out so I can get around the star here. Okay. I try to trim so that you can see what I'm doing, right? So you can see it on the screen. Sometimes it's hard when you're trying to trim in front of the camera. Okay. So I'm going to turn this around, and then the next step is the, oh yes, the small decorative, it says decorative outline. So this is step number 8 in the machine. Step number 13 in the instructions on page 12. And then the next one's going to be just a little sewn star. And I think I did that one also in the golden basket, so I'm using the same color here. Yep, so the next one is step number 9. Oh, it's the spark. It's the little spark up here on the on top of the fuse. So that I left in the golden basket, and then I think the next one is the little star. So this is the little spark that's on top of the fuse. I think it's on top of the firecracker on the top. There we go. That's what that was. And then there's another little star, which is step number 10 in the machine. Well, it'll be step number 10 in this design. Okay, so then we got 2 little stars actually. Yep, there's 2 little stars. And I'm going to leave that golden basket in to do the little gold stars. So with the quilting design in my machine, I'm on number 15, and the actual step that we're doing is 15 in the instructions on page 12, and then the sewing stitch on the machine would have been 10, but mine's 15 because remember we had the quilting design in there. So it's going to do the 2 little stars, and then we're going to go back to applique again. We're going to do some red. So hopefully I have my red here somewhere. My red back on my red thread. There's that one. Okay, so now we need another placement line, and since I'm going to be using red leather on this, I'm going to go to my red thread, and I think that is number 800 red. That's always a good red for most of the patriotic stuff. So number 800 red. Thread that up, and this will be the placement line for the firecracker. I'm going to do that. And this is step, for my machine, it's step number 16. In the instructions, it's step number 16 in the instructions. So actually the instructions and everything's kind of like jiving right now. Okay, so there's my placement line for my firecracker. I want to get this little tail out of here. Okay. Then we're going to use our little piece of fabric, and as you can see, it's plenty big enough. So I'm not going to tape it. You can tape it down if you like, but I'm just going to hold it. Okay, and it's going to do this. This one is going to be, it does have a satin stitch, so this one is not going to be raw edge. It is going to be a satin stitch. So we're going to trim this one close to the stitches also. Okay. And this one's going to also then be satin stitched. That's the next step with the red thread. We're still using red. A second. No, sometimes I have to with this red embroidery leather. I have to be real careful not to make that white show a lot if it's raw edge. But this is going to be covered, so I'm not being as careful with this one since I know it is going to be covered with satin stitches. So the next step is the satin stitches. Okay, so here's the satin stitches, and then we're just going to be working on laddering. All the applique is done. This was a really fun, easy block. So here's my satin stitches. They do really beautiful satin stitches. That's one thing about Kimberbell. All of their designs have really nice covering satin stitches. And everything stays really nicely covered, and also, you know, like it doesn't come apart where the satin stitches are. So this is one of my favorite blocks. This one, and I really like the cake, and that's the other one we're going to do in this video. So I love the quilting on the cake and on the flag one, so they're really cute. I don't know, I liked all these blocks. They were very, very fun. Okay, so the next several steps, we're going to do sweet, land, of, and then liberty, and these are all just going to be sewn letters. So what I'll do is I'll get it started. So the word sweet I did in the red, so I'm going to leave my red in, and sweet is going to sew first, and I'm going to pause the video while this is stitching until it gets closer to the end, and that way it's all ready to go on to the next color. Okay, so I have the word sweet sewn out in my red, and then the next word is going to be land. So I'm going to do that one in the lighter blue that I had chosen, and it is called Paris Blue. So it's 0028 Paris Blue. So I'm going to use that next. Let's take the red thread out and put the blue in. And I think I'm going to use that for the word land and of. So the next two words will be in the Paris Blue. So we'll get that started, and I'll pause the video while it's stitching, because this is the part that takes the longest, is just the lettering. The first part was very fast. So here's land and of, and once those are done, I will come back and we will start the last word, which is liberty. Okay, so we have land of done in the lighter blue, and then liberty is going to be the darker blue, and let me see, my darker blue is called Blue Nautica. It's kind of a dark royal blue, and this one was number 1045. These are the brother colors, so if you missed that. So we're going to use Blue Nautica to do the word liberty, and then we'll come back and we'll trim the block. We'll get this started, and we're almost done with this block. Okay, so it's just finishing the word Liberty, and we are done stitching this block. So what a cool, I thought this one was really cool, and I love the little stitching with the up and down wavy lines. So, okay, so the next part we're going to do then, we're going to take this out of the hoop, and then we're going to trim it. This one needs to be trimmed to 6.5 by 6.5 with the orange pop ruler. So give me a moment. I'm going to pause the video while I move the camera over so that you can see where I'm going to do the trimming. Okay, so we're ready to take this out of the hoop. You can see it turned out really pretty. Take this out of my hoop then, and I'm going to lay this on my, I love my Martelli rotating mat. This is the Martelli roundabout. And we're going to go ahead and lay this on my hoop, or on my mat, and then we're going to line up. This is a 6.5 by 6.5 orange pop ruler, and if you don't have these orange pop rulers, if you do want to do a bunch of these blocks, it's so much easier with these rulers, so I'd highly recommend them. They have a rectangle set and a square set. They are on shieldsewingcenter.com, and one of the first things I bought when I started doing Kimberbell designs was these rulers. they are so much easier, and I'm not very good with rulers and stuff, so I tried, you know, squaring mine up by myself. So what I'm doing is the tack down line for the fabric is about 6.5 by 6.5. Now if you had to do this in a 6 by 6 hoop, you won't have this, so you just have to kind of, what I would do is tell you to, you know, to look at your quilting on your side, and then you'll know if you're about right. So you'll be able to tell if you're pretty centered, okay? And this is my 6.5 by 6.5 ruler. And then I'm going to lay the bigger one on the outside. I like that because then I have a little bit more to grip onto. So I usually leave 2 rulers. I'm just trying to, I think I moved it a little bit. There we go. Okay, so then I'm going to take my, I have a Martelli rotary cutter as well, and these are the ergonomic type that you move your hand this way so that I don't bother, my wrist bothers me if I cut with a regular rotary cutter anymore. So I'm going to turn this towards me. Now I'm left-handed, so I'm going to start over on the right-hand side. So this is my right hand, and I'm going to lay it down on the ruler, and I'm going to start in the corner down here at the bottom, and I'm going to push upward to the top. Then I'm going to turn this again. Okay, and I'm going to push this down. Now you're working on the inside of the ruler, so it's a little awkward at first. So what I'd recommend, if you have trouble doing that, go ahead and just use a pen and just mark the inside, and then you can cut it with a regular ruler if you want. I've found so that I get along real well, but the trick is if you're left-handed to work on the right, okay, and turn the mat towards you, and then if you're right-handed on the left, okay, so you're working with the on the inside of the ruler. Okay, so that's 6.5 by 6.5. Okay, I'm going to pull this out and see how we did. There we go. There's my, I think I've got a little spot there that didn't cut. I need a new blade in my rotary cutter. Notice that it was starting to have it has a little, must have hit something with it because it's got a little divot that wants to catch every now and then. There we go. So there's Sweet Land of Liberty with the quilting, and then this will be part of our pillow, and we'll be sewing it in at the end. But isn't that beautiful? I just loved this block. So the next block in this video will be the cake block. So if you give me a few minutes, I'll reset up, and then we'll start the cake block. Okay, so now I'm all set up to do the cake block. And this one is in the 8 by 12 hoop. So if you altered your design to fit it, you could fit it in the 6 by 10, but I am using the 8 by 12 in my machine since my machine has a bigger hoop. And there's a couple things I wanted to tell you. The background, I put the shape blocks on my background fabric. So here's my, let me turn this camera just a little bit. Here's my background fabric. So I have shape blocks on the back of this, okay? And again, I use some scraps. I like to use up my scraps. So Used some scraps, and then I also added some shape flex to a couple of the layers of the cake. So we're going to be using some embroidery leather again, but there was two really light colors in the cake, and so I did go ahead and put some shape flex on the back of these because the tan-ish brownish background kind of showed through. So I did go ahead and put some shape flex on these two pieces, this little stripe piece and this little polka dot piece. And then there's a piece that's darker, and this one was fine. So I didn't put any on that, but I did on these lightweight, light colored ones. Okay. And then also my first pillow that I did, I had a kit, and I didn't have quite enough of the kind of taupey brown tan color to do the background. So my tan that I had, my plain, is just a little bit more tan. So I actually am going to be using a different color than I did on the original one. So I'll just tell you that when that's going to be in the quilting, and also in the quilting, and also for the first part of the design. Okay, so we'll go first and get our design, and first we're going to bring up the quilting, and the quilting on this one, let me check on what it says here. It says to use Patriotic 3, so we're going to bring in the quilting design first. So I'm going to go down to my stick, and I'm going to bring, it's Patriotic 3 6 by 10. So I'm going to go down to my Kimberbell quilting designs, and Patriotic 3. Like I said, I have a lot of these designs, so I pretty much have all of them. Patriotic 3. There we go. And then I'm going to use the 6 by 10. And it's the block by block ones that we're using because we're going to put batting in. So let me find my 6 by 10. Let's see here. 6 by 8, 6 by 10. So it's right here. So we're going to use that one. And I'm going to set it. This is a really cool quilting design. It has all the little elements from the pillow in it. I thought it was so cool. And I'm going to set that one, and then I'm going to add the design. And the cake design is also on my stick, and it is under Sweet Land of Liberty. And I'm going to be doing, so if you do have a smaller hoop, they give you a 2-piece design that you can multi-hoop, but we're not going to do that. We're going to use the larger one, which is the 6 by 10 version down here. Okay, and then we're going to set that. Now these, it says that the block embroidery file and the quilting need to be centered, so they automatically come into the machine centered, and that's where it is. So that's where we're going to leave that. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit embroidery. All right, so the first thing then we're going to do, of course, is to get our batting and our quilting done. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera here. Have you ever noticed that when you do a video, somebody starts to mow? So there's the guys outside mowing right outside the door. Oh well. So I'm going to go ahead, and I've got my no-show mesh stabilizer in, this is my 8 by 12 hoop. And the first step then is going to be my batting placement line. So I'm just going to go ahead and stitch this out, and this will be the batting placement line. This is a really fun block, and the quilting is so cute on it. I really like, I think it's the same quilting that's on the flag block. All right, so I got my scrap of batting. I'm getting it ready here. Dan's kind of lazy and doesn't like to trim, doesn't like to cut any more than it's necessary. So this was my cake. I had already had my little cake, all my little cake parts in one little baggie. All right, so there's my placement line. So I just put my, this is my quilting thread. So the original one that I did was a little bit more taupe. So if you happen to get a kit from my girlfriend's quilt shop, you probably got this more taupe kind of tan color. I used number 399 warm gray. So I would have put that in the last time. But this piece that I had myself was a little bit more on the tan side. So the taupe looks kind of gray next to it. So I'm using, for this one, I'm using number 1141 shredded wheat. So it's a little bit more on the tan side. All right, so now I'm going to lay my batting in here. And the next step, step number 2, is going to tack down the batting. All right, whoops, I got to get some of my fabric out of the way here. And I just kind of smooth it as I go. Sometimes these bigger pieces, like this one's kind of big, they want to scooch just a little bit. So I try to keep it flattened out so it doesn't scooch around. Sometimes you'll get a little pucker on it if you let it scooch too much. Just watch your hands. Just going to go around it twice. Trying to watch my instructions, and then I've got all this fabric laying over here. This was such a cute block, and it had but it does have lots of applique in it. This one had more applique, I think, than all the rest of them put together, pretty much. The flag block, of course, is pieced in the hoop, so it had quite a lot too, but this one just had lots of little applique pieces. Okay, so here I've stitched down my batting. So now I'm going to trim my batting close to the stitches. Okay. So we get this, you probably can't see me trimming. I was at the bottom of the hoop. It's kind of a long hoop. Sorry guys, there you can see me trimming. So I've just got my double curved, 6-inch double curved scissors that I'm trimming with. And I'll just come up, you'll be able to see me. Okay, so I'm just trimming close to the stitches. This is so nice because then you don't have all that bulk in your seams when you go to sew this together. Okay. All right. All right. Then I'm going to take my background, or actually, sorry, I always forget the step. You guys need to watch me. Step number 3 is going to be the placement line for the fabric. If you had altered your design to do this in a 6x10, this would not be here. So you would have then laid your fabric down as centered as you could get it, and then you would quilt. But we have a placement line and a tack down line in this one. So you guys are supposed to watch me because I always forget this step. It's not hard to know where to put the fabric. That's why removing those lines is not a big deal. If you're doing the 6x10 version though, I would tell you just to tape your fabric on all 4 sides just to kind of hold it in place while it's quilting. Alright, so then we're going to lay this in as centered as I can get it. And then it's going to tack this down. I think I need to come down this way a little bit. There we go. Okay, so then it's going to tack this down. And that's step number 4. And these are the 2 steps that if you're using the 6x10 and you altered your designs, you would not have. But then you would just tape along the edges here when you put this in. Looks like I have cat hair in my fabric. That's normal. But this is the little lines that made, you know, the 6x10 too large. I should say too large for the 6x10 hoop. Okay. So I'm just leaving the same color in for all of this. And then now the next step is going to be the quilting. And this is the patriotic number 3 quilting that's going to quilt on the background here. And then we'll start our design. It's very windy today. So there's the design, and it's going to be a really cool kind of it's actually very detailed. It has all the little elements of the quilt or the pillow in it. It's just really cool. So like there's the little firecracker that's on the Sweet Land of Liberty block. And then I think it has like the little cake, and it has the watermelon, and it has pinwheels. So it's like all these little elements out of this design. So now this is going to take just a few minutes to sew. So I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and pause the video while it's stitching. But you can see it's really cute. And here's the little watermelon right here. So, and then this is the one that goes on the flag as well. So, oh, and I think there's even a pie. I think it's doing the pie right now, and there's a pie block too. So, okay, well, pause the video for a moment while it's stitching, and then we'll come back and start the applique. Okay, so there's our quilting, and it's so cute, and I just love the Hobbs batting because it just gives it a little bit of a loft. So here's the little pinwheels and the cake. So all the little elements from this, and then here's the little flower with flower pot. So these are all a part of the blocks that are in this pillow. So I just thought that was so cool. So the next step is just going to be some little, what do they call them? They stitch the scrolls in pinwheel stems. So there's just going to be some little stems up in here. That's going to be on the top of the cake, and I did those in my 817 gray satin. So that's the first step of the embroidered block. So we got the quilting all done. Now we're ready to do the embroidery. So we're going to do these little stems, and then we're going to start the applique of the little cake, and I think it starts with the light colors. So I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video while this is stitching. It's just going to do, I forgot it did satin stitches, so it's going to take a few minutes for this to stitch out. Okay, so I've got my little stems done, and the next step is going to be the placement line for our first applique piece, which is going to be the little polka dots here. So I'm going to put the white in for that, for this piece. I want it to be white, so I put white thread in. I've just got the embroidery bobbin thread still on the bobbin. And it's going to do the little piece of the cake. And it's actually not the top piece, it's the second piece, sort of. Okay, then we're going to lay this piece down. This is the one with the little polka dots on it. We're going to lay this down over there. And I'm going to leave my white thread in, and then we're going to tack it down and trim close to the stitches. Make sure I don't lose any of my... There's lots of little applique pieces in this with all the little layers of the cake, so... Okay, so we're going to trim this close to the stitches. Maybe if I can get my arm around the camera here. And we're going to, the next step is going to do a little bit of the satin stitching on the edges here. So I'm going to leave my white in for that. I'm going to trim across here. Now some of this applique has satin stitches and some of it is raw edge, so depending on the piece it is. I think the felt is all raw edge, I think. Can't remember, it's been a little bit since I've made this one. So we'll be seeing as we're going, I guess. So, okay, so now the next piece, this is going to be satin stitch. So flip this back over, and then this step is going to be the little satin stitches that go along the edge of the cake, the first cake part. And I got to find my next color. I got threads all over the place, so I'm not sure where it went. Do those two little satin stitches. And it looks like the top part is going to be, let's see, later trim the fabric. I think the top part is going to be raw edge. Yeah, I think the top, the pink is raw edge. So there's the little satin stitches on the edge there. And then the next part is going to be actually the top of the cake here, and it was done in this really pretty pink felt. And so my felt's going to look really funny. I didn't have that color in my stash, so I had just enough. If I'm real careful, I can get this out of the same piece that I used for my first one. So I'm going to use the same color. It was Cherub Rose 1348. It was that real bright pink. So I'll put that color of thread in. And then it's going to do my placement line for that. And this is step number 5 in the instructions, or it should be step number 5 on the machine, but it's actually step number 8 in the instructions for the placement line. And then it says place the top layer of frosting felt, stitch the top layer of frosting, tack down line, and then trim the felt as desired. So in other words, this is raw edge applique with the felt. So second here, I got my little tail hanging out here, so get this out of here so it won't sew into my raw edge. So if I'm very careful, I should be able to get this out of this piece of the felt. It just barely fits, so let's see if I can get it out of there. I didn't have this real bright color, and I had some other pink, but nothing this bright, so it should be able to get it out of there. So we'll see how this goes. It's going to be close. Sometimes when I order kits, and I love to order kits for the stuff, I can almost get 2 out of the kit because, you know, Kimberbell's a little generous with some of their fabrics. And this one, I actually got most of the second pillow out of the same kit. And then, and even some of these little applique pieces. So you can see it just fit. Okay, so there's my piece of felt. And I've still got this little tail that wants to come up. There we go. And then we're going to trim this. And I like to trim it just a little bit away from, when it's raw edge, I like to trim it just a little bit away from the stitching. Maybe leave about 1/8 of an inch or so from the stitching. And it did like a triple stitch since it's raw edge. So with this, you know, I'm usually pretty careful. I want it to look pretty when it's trimmed. Take your time to trim it. My nose itches. They're out mowing today, and it makes me sneeze. Still got a thread stuck there. There we go. Just didn't want to come up out of there. Okay. So I'm going to have to flip this over, excuse me. With these bigger hoops, it's harder to flip them over in the machine. So again, I'm trying to stay, and I don't have a whole lot of felt left, but I had just enough to get me another really bright pink top on my cake. I had another pink, it wasn't as pretty though. Okay, so I'll get those little pieces out of the way. I think I've got a little spot here that I need to clean up a little bit. Right there. There we go. Okay. Looks good. Alright, so there's my top of my cake. Now the next piece is going to be, the next piece is going to be that striped piece. And that is kind of gray. It's this gray striped piece. So I used my sterling gray for that. So I'm going to pull that out. And the placement line will be first. So let me get my sterling here. It's down here somewhere. There we go. Sterling, yeah, sterling is 0158. And these are the brothers' colors again. Got some pink felt in there that I probably don't want underneath that fabric. Alright. So when I did this one, I did have to add a few pieces of my own fabric, but and this piece here was one. I didn't have any of the Kimberbell, the new Kimberbell solids, so this one isn't another solid. It was just a little browner though. Okay, so I've got my sterling in here, and we're going to do the placement line for the next layer of the cake. And this is what we're going to put on. Is this one. After I trim my long tail. Okay. This one had a lot of applique, but they were easy and fun. Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll cover that up. Make sure. And then this one is directional, so just make sure that you have it laying, you know, you don't have it laying like super crooked or something. Because it is got stripes on it, obviously, so I'm going to kind of try to keep it as straight as I can. Okay, and then I'm going to stitch the tack down line, which this is step number 8, and the machine is 14 in the instructions here. It's hard for me to tell you what step I'm on right now, because when you add the quilting lines, it adds like 5 steps. So the numbers in the book don't match up. So you could take the design out. You could just do the quilting first and then take the design out and bring your other design in, instead of bringing them in together, if that bothers you that you can't figure out what steps you're on. I don't normally have too much trouble. I just look at the book. Okay, so these are going to be we're going to trim this close to the stitching, and this one's going to be satin stitched. This is one of the ones that I had the shape flecks on the back because it was kind of light colored, and also the little polka dotted one. So we're just going to trim these close to the stitches. Okay, whoops. Got that. There we go. Got that trim. Got all these little hairs all over. Okay. And then the next step is going to be the satin stitching, and I'm just going to go ahead and leave my sterling in there, that real light gray. So we'll get this started, and then I'll pause the video while this is stitching because it takes a minute to stitch. So it's going to stitch along the top. It's not going to do the bottom part. That's going to be covered up with the next layer. So, all right. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so this is all satin stitched up here. Now the next layer is going to be this blue layer, and I think it's actually, there's one in between. So this one's going to go next. It's going to be dropped down here. And I did that with the Paris blue. So it's a lighter color, the lighter blue that I chose. Let me grab that. Paris blue is 0028. So we're going to do the placement line first. Now I think this one might be satin stitched or decorative stitched. I don't have any shape flecks on the back of this one. It was dark enough that it didn't show through. So let's do the tack or the placement line. Do this one. I think this one has satin stitches too. It's just on the edges though. Got all the little bumps on it. Looks like little hills and valleys. Okay. And then we're going to lay this down and we're going to tack this one down. Tack this down. Again, this one's kind of directional, so you might want to make sure you get it fairly straight so that it doesn't look strange. I tried to get my stripes fairly straight. Then we're going to tack this down. This is still the Paris blue. Just around it a couple times. And then the next one was also, the next one's also felt. The next layer was felt. Okay, so then we're going to trim this one close to the stitches. And I think this one's just going to be satin stitched on the edges also. Okay, so we'll trim this one. Get the camera moved down a little bit so I can get my hand under it. So we're going to trim these. And up the sides. This one was kind of a hard one to trim. It had lots of little peaks and valleys in it. I like that blue fabric with the little herringbones, or what do they call those? shapes on there. They have a lot of these fabrics, and they use them, they don't use them that often. They use them in a lot of the Halloween ones. But this one was the blue, in the blue. I thought this was pretty. There's reds. They have all different colors of it. Okay, so then it's going to do, the next step is going to be the little satin stitches on either side there. And I'm just going to leave my Paris blue in for that. And then we're going to do another piece of felt. Just the little sides covered up. I really like the quilting, isn't that neat? And I didn't realize that it was like elements of the pillow until I really looked at the whole thing put together. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's the watermelon, there's the pinwheels, there's the little firecracker. It was all these little things. And then, yes, so the next step is going to be the felt. I'm going to get my white thread ready. Because this is going to be like some more frosting. And this will also be raw edge applique. Okay, so there's the edges. And now I'm going to change over to my white and we'll put the frosting on. Now I've got another piece of that felt from my first one. I didn't have any of that really white. Kimberbell has this really pretty, this one up here was their, what do they call it, grapefruit? Or something like that. It's pink grapefruit, I think. And I didn't have a pink that color. And then the one I'm going to use now is their antique white, which is a really pretty kind of wintry white color. And I didn't have anything that color. Mine was creamier. So I was hoping I could get this out. So hopefully this will work. Okay, so here's this is step number 22 on page 21. That is going to be the placement line for this. So I'm hoping I can get it out of this piece of felt. We'll see if we can get it to work. I kind of test fitted it, so I think it will. Because I like this, I like their antique white, so I just don't have any. I thought I had a roll of it and I don't. Okay. So let's see if we can get this in here. So let's see if we can get it to cover up. I think it's going to be just barely big enough. So I have to be careful over here. There's a little spot right here, so I have to make sure that I get this pulled this way far enough so that it covers up. I think it's going to be close. Let's see. I think I can come down this way a little bit. Okay, so let's see. See if we can squeeze it out here. When I have to make two of these, sometimes I have a little trouble with some of the embellishments. That's the ones I have trouble making sure I have enough of. Okay. And I left my white in. It's going to do the triple stitch, and then this is going to be raw edge applique. But I think we might be able to get it done here. I'm going to kind of watch these little pieces down here and make sure they don't flip up on me. It's going to be close. I think we might make it. The only place I wasn't sure of was right there, and I think it's going to make it. Yay! Made it. Okay, so now we're going to trim this, and this is going to be raw edge, so just take your time trimming this one. I'm going to turn my page so I know where I'm heading next here. Okay, so we're going to trim this, and this is going to be raw edge applique, so you do want it to be pretty along the edge, so just take your time. Trim about 1/8 of an inch away or so. These are always hard to trim because there's lots of curves. Okay, and they don't normally give you, they give you some of the SVG files for this, just so you know, if you like to pre-cut your fabric. Most of their stuff is, their shapes are pretty simple, so I don't pre-cut most of my Kimberbell stuff. I do if it's real intricate like lettering or something like that. But most of their shapes are fairly simple, and it seems like it takes me longer to pre-cut than it does just to trim it in the hoop. I've been trimming in the hoop for years and years, so this one would not have had an SVG anyway because of the when they are raw edge applique, they don't give you a SVG file for those, so you have to trim those in the hoop anyway. All right, so it's looking pretty good. Look at that. Go across the top here. That was the hard part, was all the little loopy loops. Okay, that's a technical term. All right, let's go there. Oops, looks like I got a thread sticking out there. Go up and around here. See if I can get it. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. Go up and over here. There. Didn't have very much at the top, did I? I was pretty close, but I got it done. I really like this antique white. They have that. It's not really white, but it's much whiter than what I had. I had kind of a cream color, and I didn't think it was going to be a very pretty frosting, since it's frosting. Look at there, just made it. Okay, so there's that one. So the next step is going to be the little tray down here, and that's done in the silver leather, embroidery leather. So I think I switched back over to my sterling again, that light silver. So I'm going to go ahead and switch that back if I can find it. Here it is. And we're going to do the placement line for the little cake tray in the leather. Okay, so this is step number 26 in the book. We're getting close to being done. And there's 2 pinwheels. The pinwheels are really cute at the top, and those are done in leather too. Alright, so there's our little cake tray, and we're gonna put our silver embroidery leather down. Okay, just make sure you get it all covered, because they don't give you a lot extra the horizontal way, so just be careful that you get it all covered up. Okay, and it tells you to tape. I never tape. I usually just hold it. Just watch your hands. I have a little trouble with tape sometimes, leaving a little residue, so I don't like to tape very well unless I have to. Sometimes you just have to. There we go. And I think this one has a decorative outline, so that's why I'm making sure that I'm using the matching thread that I'm going to be doing my decorative stitch in, just in case it shows through. Okay, so then we're going to trim this one. Trim this one. Let me pull the camera back just a bit so you can see what I'm doing. And then we're going to get this one trimmed. Oops. And this one you want to be pretty close to the stitches because we're doing a decorative stitch over the top. The decorative stitches are never as wide as like satin stitches are. So you do want it to be fairly close. You can see what I'm doing, sorry. It's hard with these longer hoops in the machine. I try not to turn it, but I can't get anything to cut. Got that one. This is very shiny. It's a real bright day today, so it's been kind of glary out here. And this silver leather, wow, it's like a mirror. Okay, so there is that. Okay, so there's the trim for the cake tray. And then the next step will be the decorative stitch. So So I'm gonna leave my sterling in there for that. And this is gonna do kind of a motif, as I remember, a motif stitch. Yep. So I'm gonna go ahead, this is gonna take a minute to sew, so I'll go ahead and pause and then come back when it's done. Okay, so we got our little cake tray done and all the cute little decorative stitch over the top. And then the next step is going to be the pinwheels. So the first pinwheel is going to be done with the red embroidery leather, and I used my Cherub Rose, which is the 1348. It's kind of a pink color to use for the contrasting color on the red. So the first step of this, of course, is going to be our placement line. So this is step number, I'll find it, step number 31 in the book. And I'm going to sew out that little placement line. And then we're going to lay our embroidery leather down. Just a second here. Get that little tail out of the way. We're going to lay our embroidery leather down over the top of that. And then the next step is going to be the tack down and the detail. So it's going to be all done in the pink. So I'm going to leave my pink in. And we're going to do the detail of the pinwheel and the tack down. And this is going to be also raw edge applique. And then we'll do some trimming. It's really cute. And of course, my piece is plenty big enough, so I just kind of stuck it in the center. I have lots of scraps of the leathers and stuff now. I keep all your little scraps, because for Kimberbell, sometimes all you need is like a 2-inch square of something. And I keep all my little scraps. Okay, so then we're going to trim this in the shape of the pinwheel. So this is going to be raw edge applique. So with the red leather, it's got a white core. So this one I kind of have to be careful, and I kind of tip my scissors a little bit so that the white doesn't show too much. I have a little harder time with the red. The red, and I think the blue might have a white core too. So I don't want the white to show too much, so I kind of tip my scissors in so that I'm a little bit more up and down. Sometimes I'll use a micro tip scissor for this instead. I just don't happen to have them out today. And then, so I'm leaving about 1/8 of an inch, because this is raw edge applique. About 1/8 of an inch away. And we're just going to cut it into the shape of a little pinwheel. Oops, having trouble with this one. There we go. So you can see I have my scissors kind of tipped, so it's kind of I'm trying to keep those edges as straight as possible. There we go. I think I need to go down a little bit more on this one. Yeah, just needs a little bit more of a point there. There, that's better. Okay, so there is my first pinwheel. Okay, and then we're going to have another one. We're going to have a blue one, and on that one I think I did the lighter blue, so the detail showed. So I'm going to go ahead, it's a navy blue leather, so I'm going to go ahead and put my Paris blue in, which is the lighter blue, and we'll do the placement line. Second here. Oops, didn't mean to cut, sorry machine. I upset it. I often push the wrong button, it gets mad at me. Okay, so we're gonna do the placement line for the next piece of leather, which is this navy blue embroidery leather. Yeah, see, this one's kind of light colored in the back too. Not as white as this one, but okay. So then we're going to put this down over the top, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to do these little decorative stitches and a tack down line for this one. And I'm going to leave the same Paris blue in there so that it shows. Just going to hold it till it gets started. So it's going to do the same type of pretty decorative stitching. Getting almost done. This is a fun block. I just thought all of these were fun. I don't know if I really have a favorite one. I really love the Sweet Land of Liberty block, and I love the flag block. This one was really fun. It had lots of applique. All of them do. I mean, like the pie is really cute, so that's going to be this one we're going to do for the second week. There's a pie and a watermelon, and then there's a cherries block, which we'll do in the live class, which we will have done in the live class. You may not have seen this video until after the live class, so I'm doing these ahead of time, so I have them done for you, so I can put them right up. Okay, so there's our pinwheel, and now we have to trim this one, and that's the end of this block. So we'll trim this one. Again, I'm going to kind of turn my scissor so that it's kind of upright, and then I get a more straight edge, staying about 1/8 of an inch away from the stitching. I want it to look like a pinwheel. Okay. This is not normally the way I trim these, but the leather is it took me a while to get used to trimming the leather, because it does have kind of a core to it. It's sort of like, you know, cardstock that has a core, and then it's white inside and you can see the white, so you have to be you have to trim it a little differently. And so I just turn my scissor over so that it's more up and down. But I still do better with these scissors usually than my microtips. And sometimes those work too, but I still like these better. They're very sharp and they have really tiny tips on them. There we go. So there's our 2 pinwheels on the top. Isn't that cute? Alright, so there's our cake block. So I'm going to take this out of the hoop, and if you give me a moment, I'm going to pause the video for a moment while I move over so we can do the trimming, because the next step will be trimming this out. Okay, so I'm going to take this out of the hoop. Lay the hoop up here. You may see a cat paw in this part of the video. She decided she's going to come help me. Okay, so here is my block, and on this one it says to visually center the design using both the 6.5 by 8.5 and the 8.5 by 10.5 pop rulers, so orange pop rulers. Okay, and we're going to use our rotating mat again here. Give me a second here. So I've got both my sets of rulers here. I'm going to lay this down. And the block is going to be 6.5 inches wide, so we're actually going to be cutting with both of these. Okay, so we know the width. So what I like to do is I like to get this one in. I like to put the big one in first, so I can kind of see about where the top and the bottom need to be, and then I put this one in second, and I need to slide it this way just a little bit, because then I know my top and bottom are pretty much, I can tell from my line. If you don't have those lines, you're going to have, like I said, if you're doing this in the 6 by 10, you don't have these little lines here, but just you'll be able to get it lined up. You just have to kind of do a little bit of eyeballing. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I think I've got it pretty straight. All right. Then it says to cut the left and right sides. So this one we want it to be 6.5 inches wide. Okay, so we're going to use the 6.5 inch ruler in there. Got to find my rotary cutter. Okay, so we're just going to do the top and the bottom right now, or the sides right now in the 6.5. We're not going to cut across here. We're just going to do the sides. So I'm going to roll it across. Okay, and then we're going to turn it around and do the other side. Just the sides. We're not doing the top and the bottom. Okay, and then I'm going to roll this, and then we're going to remove this one, and then now we're going to do the top and the bottom, because we want it to be 10.5 inches long. So there's, this one's 8.5 by 8.5 wide and 10.5 inches long. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to do this one. Okay, like that. Now we're going to have a couple little spots that we need to connect up here. So like right here, I'm just going to take my ruler and connect the top to the bottom. Right here and right here. Sometimes I do this with a regular ruler. I have a little more trouble with the pop rulers because I can't see. They're kind of dark to see through. I like a clear or like a light yellow ruler, and these orange ones sometimes I can't see if I've got it lined up quite right. See, I got that one a little off. It'll be fine. Okay, and do this right here. All right. Okay, so there's my block. I've got it all trimmed, and that is the last of the first week's blocks. And next week we'll do 4 more. There's only 8 blocks in this quilt, or this pillow, so it actually goes pretty quickly. So this is the second one that I did. We'll do the live ones, and then these are the last 2. So anyway, if you have any questions about Sweet Land of Liberty, please, you can email me at, you can message me through Facebook, through Messenger. You can reach me through shieldsewingcenter.com. You can come to my YouTube channel, Sew Along with Jan on YouTube or on Facebook, and ask me questions. So I hope you enjoyed the video and making the couple more blocks.